morning, viewers. Welcome to day 2 of Vasant Vihar Litfest 2021. As promised yesterday and throughout the show, we have a packed day today with, to start with, we have 3 book discussions. And then we have a session on Sundar Nursery renovation. We have a session on future trends in
travel.
Yeah.
Good morning, viewers. Good morning and welcome to day 2 as well. Raj, you were talking about...
Yeah, I was saying that we have sessions on future trends in digital technology, something that I think all of us are very keen to know. Let me also say that technology shares are doing very well of late. So
we are sitting here thanks to technology.
Yeah, so we are sitting here because of technology. So that's something that all of us are going to be listening to with a lot of attention. During the lockdown, in fact, suddenly we saw a whole lot of wildlife coming out on the streets and, a lot more visibility. So we have a session on tiger conservation, and 3 specialists are talking about how the tiger population in India has increased manifold during the last few years. And so there are another couple of book discussions, including an interactive one between the co-authors. And we wrap up the day with a cultural program where we have 2 poets, or poetess. And I think there's one which I think you just briefly mentioned. There is one on future of travel and hospitality. Again, another industry which has been severely impacted in the last few months, but I'm sure there is hope for it as we go forward.
You are surely looking forward to the day's program, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So are we all.
I'm always particularly charged on Sundays, unlike some people. But
so enjoy the day. It's a Sunday, so you can be online through the day, watching these different sessions from the comfort of your bed, or you can dress up like we are sitting, come to the club and sit out in the lawns, and you can watch it from there as well.
Yes, and so we have combo meals.
That's entirely up to you.
We have combo meals at the cafe and in the restaurants. Also, the terrace garden, fabulous setting. I can already see it's a sunny day outside, so come and enjoy this Sunday. We have made arrangements at a couple of places in the club where this whole show is being beamed live. You could be sipping a beer and sitting in the bar, and it's shown on a big screen there, as well as in the reception lobby. So most welcome to come to the club, or as Sanjana says, watch it in the comfort of your house and enjoy it there or on the go. That's the advantage of technology. You can literally watch this on the go. Just click on our website, Vasant Vihar Litfest.
And we need to thank our sponsors as well, Raj.
Yes,
so we
please
need
go
to
ahead.
Thank our sponsors, Finesta Windows, Thapar Institute, KCT Group, and Sotheby's India. So thank you to our sponsors as well. And
so maybe let's not come in the way of The Longest Kiss. The name of the book.
I think you're being too cheeky first thing in the morning, Raj.
I'm only giving the heading of the book.
Let's start the day. And what we have lined up for you today is a book discussion on The Longest Kiss, written by Kishwar Desai. I think that is one of the questions we will want to know is, how did you come to this name? I mean, why have you called the book The Longest Kiss? The book is about Devika Rani, which is mentioned in the title. And Devika Rani was India's first international superstar in the 1930s and 40s. Kishwar calls her astonishingly beautiful, immensely talented. She was the person who set up Bombay Talkies with her husband, Himanshu Rai. And we are going to find out more about this very charismatic character through the book discussion. Kishwar Desai is an award-winning author and playwright who writes both in fiction and non-fiction. She's worked in television. She is the chairperson of the Art and Culture Heritage Trust that set up the Partition Museum in Amritsar. We actually had a young writer yesterday from Vasant Vihar who was so moved by the Partition Museum that she wrote about her experience because she had heard stories from her grandparents. And when she went there, she could visualize all those stories, which in turn she wrote about. And it was very nice to see that translate into a book. Uh, Kishwar also helped install the statue of Mahatma Gandhi outside Westminster in the UK. She's the author of Darling Ji, another very interesting name, author of Darling Ji, the true story of Nargis and Sunil Dutt and the Jallianwala Bagh, the real story. Welcome to Litfest 2021, Kishwar.
Thank you.
In conversation with Kishwar is Gayatri Srivastava. Gayatri Srivastava is a media academic, a journalist, and a talk show host. She was a presenter with ZTV, and she has co-authored a book on traveling in Jakarta. Welcome to the show, Gayatri, and welcome to the Litfest 2021. Over to you. We're looking forward to listening to both of you.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Sanjana. It's an absolute privilege to be here. The first session or the second day of the Vasant Vihar Litfest 2021. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Kishwar, I started my professional career as a TV journalist, and I'm so delighted that I'm interviewing, such a illustrious media personality. You are a lady of many paths. You've helped set up the Partition Museum that Sanjana was mentioning, which has, already started to show an impact. In fact, it's one of the places one must visit when one visits Amritsar now. But this book on Devika, Rani, what motivated you to write it?
Thank you to the Literature Festival at Vasant Vihar, which is always a wonderful place to be. And I know this is early in the morning, but I am very grateful for the opportunity to talk about my book. Thank you, Gayatri. Now, what motivated me is a question I think would require a very long answer. But to put it in a succinct manner, I had actually been working on Darling Ji, which is another book which is mentioned earlier, which is on Nargis and Sunil Dutt. And I had gone to research at the National Film Archives. In Pune. This is a long time back, about 15 years ago. But basically, when I was there and I was researching, I was looking at contemporary cinema in the, just before Nargis came onto the scene. And what astonished me was the quality of the cinema which was being produced by Devika and her husband Himanshu, and particularly Himanshu in the 1920s and 30s. This was global cinema. This was cinema which was released in Europe, and it was also forgotten chapter of Indian history, or not celebrated enough, because this was globalization, which we are now seeking all the time, that our film should be seen on foreign screens and so on. So Devika and her husband had already managed to do it, Himanshu more than her. And of course, when they met, her first film called Karma, which I was lucky enough to watch as well, was something which is really extraordinary, because it got such rave reviews for her in London, where it was first premiered. So I think it was all these factors that we had forgotten the contribution of this couple, Devika and Himanshu. We had forgotten that India was already a global name in the 20s and 30s. So I think it was this motivation that first drew me to Devika on my trip when I'd gone to the National Film Archives. I collected a lot of material and got more and more fascinated by her.
Yeah. So I found the story extremely fascinating, and we'll come to the fact that Devika's debut was in London. I think Raj has mentioned and Sanjana has mentioned. Why is the book called The Longest Kiss? what is the mystery behind the longest kiss?
Well, this is something which we often associate with Devika, actually. A lot of quizzers will know that, when the question is asked, which has been the longest kiss on Indian screens in Indian cinema, and her name always comes up because this is a scene from Karma where she and Himanshu are exchanging a kiss. And because in a very peculiar context, he's supposed to have been bitten by a snake, and she is trying to revive him through these kisses and endearments. And when people imagined, because it was very surprising for a foreign audience as well as an Indian audience subsequently, because kissing was banned for a very long time. And so for them to see a couple entwined in this manner, because she's literally lying on top of him, and they thought the kiss was about 5 minutes. I've actually timed it. It's a little less than 2 minutes, but it is still an astonishingly a bold move. And that is what I found it characterized Devika her entire life. She called herself a Bengal tigress. And she was somebody who was very willing to take risks, very unlike her image on screen, which was always sari-clad, demure, playing these little innocent girls and so on. But in actuality, she was a risk taker. And I think the longest kiss symbolized that.
Yeah. So she was playing a princess in that movie, Princess of Sitapur in the movie. Right. And her lover is his life is supine, and she kisses him, and all through the movie she's been seen to be very virginal and, as you said, demure, and suddenly she transforms into this passionate kisser. So that's the background of the longest kiss. Yeah. You mentioned about
and also I should also mention that the book has it starts with this very passionate scene. I also mentioned it in the opening chapters, but towards the end, she falls in love with Sviatoslav. And there is also, for those of you who have seen the book, you will find a lovely little sketch made by Sviatoslav Rorik, who was a Russian, very talented artist. And it shows the two of them kissing. So I think it starts with a kiss and ends with a kiss. So that was also very, I think it brought out the romantic in me, not only in terms of what she typified for Indian cinema, but also in terms of her personal life, which was full of excitement, romance, affairs, etc. But this was something she did very openly, unlike many other actresses of that time who hid their passion and so on. Devika was not fearful of any of that.
Yeah. So the book starts with a kiss with Himanshu Rai, who was her first husband, and it ends with her second husband, the kiss from Sviatoslav, as you said, the famous Russian painter. Should we now delve into her love life, since you've mentioned? I mean, it's really remarkable that someone like Devika lived in the 30s and the 40s, and she did what she did. I mean, she married someone who's 16 years her senior against her parents' wishes. She eloped with one of her co-stars and came back to her husband. She had an affair with another gentleman, Amya Chakravarti, after the death of her husband, but ultimately she ended up marrying a Russian painter. So that's quite a career graph. I mean, I don't see too many parallels in today's film industry.
No, I don't know whether we can call that her career. This was a probably
in her romantic, in her personal life, Yeah, extracurricular, not professional.
I think what astonished me again about Devika was that her personal life was not always very happy. We have this image of her, having these passionate romances and so on. Some of it known, some of it not known. Because, for example, her affair with Amaya Chakravarti was always hinted upon, but I only found out about it when I was researching her. And I also must add that the book is based on her letters, and that is why, and her personal papers, her personal correspondence, which means that it has great authenticity. I did not need to really talk to anybody because nobody knew this different side of Devika, which I discovered. So what comes out also, like we are talking about her love for a particular men in her life, a love for cinema, etc. But her personal life was very traumatized because her first husband, Himanshu, went through some very traumatic times himself. And he very often took it out on Devika. So we have a well-documented history of domestic abuse, which she herself refers to. And in fact, some of it was so cruel, where he hit her so badly that she fainted, not once, but many times. And, and these were things she kept completely quiet from the world, because what was important for Devika always was her dignity. And she always felt that if she tried hard, she worked hard, and she resisted all these elements of patriarchy, which were constantly trying to bring her down, whether earlier or later, even in Bombay talkies, she learned to fight back. So in fact, she used every opportunity which was there to bring her down, to learn, to hone her skills. And as a result of which, after Himanshu's death, when she's a young widow, she's only in her mid-30s, she manages to very shrewdly manipulate her way to the top of Bombay talkies, which is astonishing again, because there were so many men who were against her at that time, which included Sashadhar Mukherjee, Ashok Kumar, and a whole formidable array of people who wanted to stop her. So it wasn't just her romantic life, which was unusual, but her career graph. Because, if you remember, Gayatri, this is also the time where a lot of Indian men and women working in cinema are very self-indulgent, falling apart, treating themselves as victims, becoming alcoholic, committing suicide. So I'm saying that her graph is very interesting for modern filmmakers as well, because she fought back. And she made herself the sole manager of Bombay Talkies. She managed to get onto the board as the only woman, and also she became the controller of productions, which is a post that her husband had held. So she is a very strong woman, and she is a survivor. I think what fascinated me more than even her various affairs and so on was the fact that she did not consider herself a victim. She was always trying to work her way out of difficult situations. And interestingly, in her letter, she says she made a pact with God. She told him that if you give me the strength, I will fight back all these difficult circumstances, because at the end of it, I pray for a reward from you. And she always considered that Svetoslav was her reward for all those days and years of suffering when she was working in cinema.
Yeah, yeah. Going back to the Bengal Tigress part of her, Devika Rani was originally Devika Chaudhary, and she was the great grandniece of Rabindranath Tagore. There are many references to that in the books. Do you think this emphasis on dignity came from that lineage?
Not exactly, because if you look at her letters and correspondence, from which I've quoted quite a lot, and by the way, again, that is only 30% of what she had to say. Basically, she's quite blunt about her opinion about people who come from a particular lineage or a legacy. She is very, very respectful of Rabindranath Tagore, but not particularly of other members of the family. And I have quoted that because she feels that they are weak. And she feels that, we need to be strong, especially the later members. I'm not talking about she's very adoring of her grandmother and, on both sides, grandparents and so on. But she does mention that it is an incident that takes place actually when she was in boarding school in Britain, and just a young girl in her teenage years. And she, like that Oliver story, goes to, Charles Dickens, goes and asks, she's hungry, and she goes and asks the nuns who are running, very strict nuns who are running the place, for a little bit more to eat. She wants a couple of eggs, and she is treated extremely badly. She's humiliated in front of the whole class. And then she says that, look, that taught me a lesson. I will never ask anybody for anything. I will fend for myself. I will fight my own battles. And she herself says that it's very strange how, as a young child, she just decided that she was going to be dignified, especially when she was abroad, because she represented an Indian girl. I mean, these are very strong sentiments. Devika was brilliant. There's no doubt about it. She was way ahead of her time. So she was not thinking like a child. She was thinking like a grown-up, setting her goals, in front of her and saying that no matter what happens to me, I am going to be this what she eventually became, a Bengal tigress. And she's not going to allow anyone to humiliate her. So she never cried in public. She never aired her dirty laundry. She just went ahead and did what she had to do very, very successfully. So it wasn't her Tagore lineage, though she does also say in the book that Tagore had met her and told her that he wanted to groom her because he felt that she had a beautiful mind and he wanted to connect with that. But alas, she says she never got an opportunity to really sit and learn from him or visit Shantiniketan. So this was a big, personal loss that she felt.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible, the kind of film graph, a professional career, the way it panned out from a debut in London and in a production which had a German director at the helm. The first movie, Karma, it was released in London and then it came to India. It's so incredible. I mean, something like that happening here. I mean, movies are released in India now, and then if they're good, they make it overseas. And then after that, please.
Yes, I just want to clarify, it was not a German director, but it was co-production. Franz Austin came later. So this was a British director at that time, but it was a collaborative effort between, it was the interwar years. So therefore it was 1933 that it was premiered in, in the UK. So as a result, it had a team of British and Germans and so on, working alongside. And she was trained in Germany. So there is a lot, yes, of German training that you can see. Excellent. I mean, the way the film is composed, because Germany had excellent studios at that time, and her singing, where she actually manages to sing classically, without much training, but she managed to pull that off. So yes, it was incredible, and the kind of turnout. Oh my God, this was on Marble Arch, which is off Oxford Street. And you had the cream of, London turning out to see this Indian film made by, actor, come producer, Himanshu Rai. But Devika was an unknown quantity. They knew Himanshu because he'd also been doing theater and so on on West End. But they knew nothing about Devika. And even the Queen and the King were, supposed to attend. They didn't actually make it, but a lot of other lords and ladies did it, and the reviews were just incredible. Devika got offers almost immediately from various directors in the UK, certainly. She was also being, picked out for maybe a Hollywood role. But then, of course, they decided to go back to India because their passion, this is when she and Himanshu were already married by then, and it was their passion and their dream. It was a joint dream. She sold all her jewelry. She gave up all the good clothes she had. She invested every last penny of hers into what they would make through Karma, the film called Karma. And then after that, also for Bombay Talkies, it was the same thing. They gave up their entire lives. This is the other thing. This is Indian cinema. And, you're talking about the romance that she had in her personal life, but this is also the romance and the passion both of them shared for Indian cinema, where they gave it everything they had. And they came back and they set up Bombay Talkies. And again, a fantastic studio. Whatever they did at the top, totally at the top. They got, how can we imagine this today? They had German technicians working there. They had British directors and of music and so on and so on, coming down, working in Bombay Talkies. Of course, throughout that period, Franz Austin was a German director who was looking after all their films. But it was quite amazing, and they wanted to make socially relevant films. And I also want to point out, Gayatri, one of the main things they did together was to bring in a very, very concentrated way, educated people to work in Indian cinema, because they felt that if they were going to go to the stock market, they wanted to corporatize, make a corporation, you can say, and make Indian cinema an industry that people would be happy to invest in. And in order to do that, they wanted to take away the stain or the taint. I don't quite agree whether it was a taint or not, but in their eyes, they needed to make it respectable so that people would invest in it. And therefore, they brought in all these educated people. And it's amazing, people like Ashok Kumar made their debut there, Dilip Kumar. I mean, these are all legends. She gave Raj Kapoor his first break. Madhubala came. Of course, Madhubala was not in that educated league, but mostly there were a lot of other people who came in who were highly educated, or at least educated enough to bring respectability to Indian cinema.
Yeah. There's a lot of Himanshu Rai in the book, because obviously it was a dream they shared, and he had a huge impact on her work, her personality, her professional life. You've dealt a lot on his background. I mean, the kind of relationships he had, how he got funding for his projects, how he groomed her.
Yeah. I think he played a very important part in her life, but he was also very crucial for destroying many of her ideals. There were a lot of things. She, as a very young 20-year-old, when she meets him, and he's already well established as an actor, as a producer, and so on, and she's this very genuinely stars in her eyes, and she's looking up to him. And then very soon she finds out that he's, before he's married her, he's already had an affair, not one, but several. And she starts
fathered a child.
And fathered a child. And all these things she doesn't know. So, her life begins to take on a different hue. And that's, as I said, she begins to toughen herself all the time. And then he also becomes increasingly violent because I suspect it was also the pressure that a producer had to go through. So I do dwell on how he used to, focus so much on the fundraising, because without the money, there was no cinema. There was nobody that she could turn to. So Himanshu was the master of marketing. And I think this was very important for her in the later years. After he dies, she uses those same techniques that he had used to approach people. But Gayatri, I want to point out the kind of patriarchy that existed. Everything that Himanshu did, he could go out, he could hang out with people, he could persuade the top industrialists and so on and so forth to come and invest in Bombay Talkies. But if she did the same thing, she would be reviled. People would say, oh my God, what a woman, look at her morals. She's going out with the governor of the UK and the British governor. She's doing this, she's doing that. She was doing exactly the same things. And to be honest, both Himanshu and her managed to get a lot of respect, not just from Indian industrialists, but from the British government. And this, as you know, was pre-partition India. So it was very important to get that support. And they were one of the very few studios, perhaps the only one, which was visited regularly by British officials. And they considered Bombay Talkies very much part of, an extension of one of the industries that they give patronage to.
Yeah. Is that a reason why she didn't come out publicly, because the domestic abuse she faced, it was always kept, it was inside the bedroom, what was happening. She never discussed it. She never brought it up. I mean, at one level, she was a Bengal tigress, always fighting for what she wanted, what seemed to be right. But another level, she didn't, go public with any of you.
No, that is the other remarkable thing. Till I came across these letters, I mean, nobody knows. This is the first time it has come out in the public domain that what was the relationship between her and Himanshu. That is one. Secondly, about the kind of pain and personal torture. And she refers to it, over and over again. And she tells Svetoslav also that, I have been abused, I have been scarred, I have been beaten, I have been tortured, but I am so happy that now I finally met you and now I'm going to come out of all of this. So she is pretty frank about it to only him. This, she did not want people to feel sorry for her. This is something which, and she felt she was quite capable of fighting back. And the term karma, it actually comes true in the book, because Himanshu, who then becomes, someone who is quite unbearable towards her and who treats her so badly, towards the end becomes completely dependent on her. And in fact, she is the only one who looks after him towards the end of his life. So, you never know what life is going to do. And that is the other fascinating part I found about this book. And as I said, through her private papers and letters, Gayatri, it took me a long time to piece this story together. I mean, now that it's in a book, it may look easy, but it was like, for over 4,000 documents, running into more than 8,000. I mean, I've even forgotten how many thousands of pages. Each letter of hers sometimes ran into 23 pages. So to sit and piece this narrative together was a huge challenge, because you had to be fair to everybody, because they all contributed greatly towards Indian cinema. But at the same time, I wanted people to realize that these were human beings, that they were suffering as well. It wasn't so easy.
I'm sorry to have to cut your conversation short, but it's absolutely fascinating listening to the person that Devika Rani was, and what a strong person she was. I think we need to read the book and discover and think about what she did. There were a couple of questions, but sadly we are out of time. So I'm going to say thank you to both of you. And perhaps at another time, we can have a longer book discussion about the book, because there are 500 odd pages. So there's a lot that you've said in that. So on behalf of the Vasant Vihar Litfest, thank you very much, Ms. Desai. Thank you very much, Ms. Srivastava. Looking forward to seeing you guys soon.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a tremendous work. I mean, Kishwar, thank you. Should read it.
Thank you.